At the edge of an ancient forest, the mist curls around twisted oak roots, and for a moment, time feels different. Here, the world moves to older rhythms, untouched by kings or clocks. In the heart of these woods lived a man, or maybe a myth, a prophet, a hermit, a wild man who, in time, would be remembered as Merlin. Before Merlin became the robed court wizard of Camelot, he was something else entirely. The story of history's favorite wizard begins in the blood and chaos of a dark age battlefield. The myth we know. When most of us picture Merlin, a single image comes to mind. A wise old wizard with a long grey beard, a flowing robe, and a staff crowned with crystal. He stands at King Arthur's side, dispensing cryptic prophecies, shaping battles, and guiding Britain toward a golden age. This is the Merlin of Legend, a man who can bend nature, summon storms, and outwit enemies before they even draw their swords. Arthur's mentor, the architect of Camelot, the kingmaker who sees the future and plays the long game to make it happen. That vision of Merlin didn't emerge fully formed. In the 12th century, Geoffrey of Monmouth gathered older Celtic and Welsh traditions, stitching them together into a single narrative. He gave Merlin a miraculous birth, a role in royal politics, and a place at the very heart of the Arthurian cycle. Geoffrey's Historia Regum Britannia turned a scattered set of stories into the definitive version of Britain's great wizard. One that would inspire centuries of poetry, plays, and films. But behind the beard, the staff, and the courtly setting may lie a much older figure, one forged not in the halls of Camelot, but in the forests and battlefields of the far north. And as historian Tim Clarkson suggests, the real Merlin's roots are far more tangled. The Old North. To understand the real Merlin, we need to leave the castles of Arthurian romance and step into a harsher, bloodier world, the Hen Ogledd, or Old North. In the 6th century, this region stretched across what is now southern Scotland and northern England, a patchwork of rival kingdoms, Strathclyde, Reged, Gododin. There was no united Britain here, only fractured territories ruled by warlords. Power was won and lost in sudden bursts of violence. Alliances were made over feasts, broken in the morning and sealed again with blood. In these borderlands, kings ruled by the sword, and survival meant being shrewd, ruthless, and ready for betrayal. Here, in the shadow of the Clyde River and the deep Caledonian forests, legends say a man named Lailoken lived, a bard, a warrior, and after a shattering defeat, a mad prophet wandering the wilderness. His story, preserved in scraps of poetry and folklore, would echo down through the centuries. This is the landscape that gave birth to Lailoken, the man many believe became Merlin. The wild man of the woods. In the year 573, a war erupted in the Old North that would scar the land and one man's mind forever. The Battle of Arthurian was a civil war between Brittonic kings, fought not against Saxon invaders, but among their own. Among those caught in the storm was Lailoken, a bard and advisor to King Gwendolew of Arthurian. Clarkson argues that this historical figure is the bedrock of the Merlin legend. When Gwendolew was killed, his army shattered. Lailoken, overwhelmed by the slaughter, fled north into the Caledonian forest. Grief, guilt, and the shock of battle broke his mind. Here he became the wild man of the woods, known in Welsh poetry as Myrddin Wilt, Wild Merlin. he lived like a hermit, clothed in rags or animal skins, surviving on berries, roots, and stream water. He spoke in riddles and verses, claiming visions of Britain's fate, the rise and fall of kings, great battles yet to come, and a future he could never change. In his madness, he was both feared and revered, a prophet born from bloodshed. From hermit to court sorcerer, how the legend changed. For centuries, the wild man of the woods was a local legend, a half-forgotten prophet from the borderlands of Scotland and Wales. Then, in 1136, a cleric named Geoffrey of Monmouth changed everything. In his History of the Kings of Britain, Geoffrey fused the stories of Merlin Wilt, or Lailoken, with other folk traditions and entirely new inventions. The result was Merlin, as we know him today. Geoffrey's creation wasn't simply a straight lift from the wild man of the woods. He fused Lailoken's prophetic madness with traits from other figures, most notably the Romano-British war leader Ambrosius Aurelianus, to create a composite character who could operate both in the mystical realm and in the high politics of kings. Gone was the ragged hermit living off berries in the forest. Geoffrey placed Merlin at the very heart of royal power, a courtly advisor and kingmaker, his prophecies guiding Britain's destiny. He added elements unheard of in the older tales, a mysterious demonic father, a birth touched by the supernatural, and a role as architect of Arthur's rise to power. This was the moment the legend leapt from a regional memory into the shared imagination of Europe. From here, Merlin would evolve into the archetype for nearly every wizard in Western storytelling. Wise, bearded, robed, standing at the crossroads of magic and destiny. But beneath the courtly trappings, Geoffrey's Merlin still carried the ghost of Lailoken, the prophet who had once wandered the forests of the Old North. Architect of Arthur's destiny. In Geoffrey's telling, Merlin isn't just a background figure. He creates Arthur's destiny. When Uther Pendragon, High King of Britain, becomes obsessed with Igraine, wife of the Duke of Cornwall, no army can breach her fortress. So Uther turns to Merlin. Using magic, Merlin disguises Uther to look exactly like Igraine's husband, allowing him to enter Tintagel undetected. That night, Arthur is conceived. The same night, Igraine's real husband dies in battle. It's a morally murky beginning, and Merlin designed it. Years later, with Britain in chaos, Merlin engineers another test. A sword set in stone, inscribed with a single challenge. Nobles and knights fail, until a young unknown Arthur pulls it free, sealing his fate. Clarkson reminds us, while Geoffrey's literary Merlin is central to Arthur's rise, his northern roots lie in a man shaped by battle trauma and exile, not just by magic. That wild prophet's scars still haunt the polished wizard of Camelot. Merlin here is not a saintly mentor. He is a trickster and a guide, weaving deceptions and bending events to ensure the right outcome, whatever the moral cost. Powers, knowledge, and limits. Merlin's greatest gift and curse was prophecy. In legend, his visions weren't vague hints. They came with chilling clarity, revealing battles, betrayals, and the eventual fall of Camelot. But like the turning of the seasons, what he foresaw could not be stopped. He was also a master of illusion. He could change his form, vanish at will, or make entire armies see things that weren't there. Geoffrey tells of him disguising Uther Pendragon to set Arthur's fate in motion. Other stories speak of conjured mists, phantom castles, and landscapes reshaped by his will. Clarkson argues that the earliest magic of a figure like Lailoken may have been less sorcery and more survival of ancient druidic traditions, rituals, natural law, and a spirituality tied to the land. His storms and visions could be the remnants of a pre-Christian world where wisdom of the earth was power in itself. One of his earliest recorded feats comes in Geoffrey's tale of Vortigern's collapsing tower. When no engineer could explain why it wouldn't stand, Merlin revealed that two dragons, one red, one white, were fighting in a hidden pool beneath the foundations, a vision that doubled as political prophecy about the Britons and Saxons. But no matter how great his abilities, Merlin's magic had a limit. He could guide kings, twist events, and shape destiny, but never change it. And in knowing the end of every story, even his own, he carried a burden no spell could lift. The Lady of the Lake and the Fall. For all his foresight, Merlin never escaped the one trap he didn't or wouldn't avoid. Her name was Vivian. Some call her Nimue, others simply the Lady of the Lake. In many tellings, she came to him as a student, eager to learn his secrets. Whether it was love, fascination, or cold ambition that drew her near depends on the version. Some paint it as a tragic romance, genuine, but doomed. Others, as seduction with a purpose, to take his power. Merlin, the master of illusion, seemed blind to hers. One by one, he gave away his greatest spells until she no longer needed him. Then came the betrayal. In some stories, she sealed him inside a hollow tree. In others, a stone cave, or cast him into an enchanted sleep from which he would never wake. Clarkson sees echoes of Lailoken here, the weary hermit, burdened by visions, ready to step aside. Perhaps Merlin didn't fight because he knew the fight was over. Perhaps he accepted that his time, like Arthur's Camelot, was fated to end. And so the wizard vanished, not in battle, but in silence, leaving behind a legend and a question. Did he fall, or did he finally choose to rest? Enduring legacy and Clarkson's conclusion. Strip away the centuries of embellishment, and Tim Clarkson's case is clear. Merlin's story likely began not in the candlelit halls of Camelot, but in the damp forests of Dark Age Scotland. There, in the turbulent 6th century, a man called Lailoken, or Myrddin Wilt, lived and died. A bard turned warrior, broken by the slaughter at Afterid, a fugitive mind haunted by grief, retreating into the Caledonian wilds to speak in riddles and foretell Britain's fate. Over time, myth clung to him like ivy, growing across centuries, absorbing fragments from other tales. By the 12th century, Geoffrey of Monmouth had taken this half-forgotten prophet and refashioned him into Merlin, son of a demon, kingmaker, architect of Arthur's reign. History blurred into legend, legend into archetype. The wild man became the wise court magician, the prophet became the sorcerer, and the hermit of the Scottish woods became one of the most enduring figures in Western storytelling. Across every version, he stands between two worlds, pagan and Christian, wild nature and royal court, history and myth. That tension may be why his story still feels alive, refusing to settle as one or the other. Perhaps, somewhere under all those layers, the real man still waits, just as the legends say, until Britain needs him again. Merlin's story may have begun among blood-soaked heather and ended in the courts of kings, but perhaps that's the point. Legends endure because they blend truth with wonder. From wild prophet to kingmaker, his tale has grown with every retelling, carrying fragments of history wrapped in magic. This has been Long History Short, your shortcut to the whole story. If you found this breakdown insightful, subscribe for more bold, clear, and curiosity-driven history. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and let us know. Was Merlin A real man whose life became myth, or simply a story too good to fact-check? Thanks for watching.